Welcome to the Writing on My Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emmanuela Stanislaus, doctorate coach and diversity consultant. I finished my doctorate in 4 years while working a full-time job, traveling the world, and balancing a busy social life. And now I'm on a mission to create a community for women of color to complete their doctorate degrees. Join me and my friends as we discuss the ups and downs of pursuing a doctorate degree and helping others to level up as doc students. Hello, everyone. Dr. Emmanuela Stanislaus here with another episode of the Writing on My Mind podcast. Today is Tuesday, December 22nd, and I officially launched the podcast yesterday. And I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who has listened, subscribed, rated, and shared the Writing on My Mind podcast. The response has been incredible. I've received some super sweet messages about how the episodes have already been inspiring to women across the country. My DMs have been filled with messages thanking me for creating this space, and that truly makes me happy. I'm also noticing that people are starving for motivation through their programs, and those messages have really helped me to know that I've struck a nerve with this podcast, and I'm really excited to serve you all. And the reason why is because I really and truly believe that my mission in life is to help people. And I'm always striving to do that. And I'm doing that through helping women of color through their doc programs, through this Writing on My Mind podcast and community that I am on my path to building. Just know that this podcast is just the beginning. There's more that extends beyond the podcast for sure, so stay tuned. Today is a solo episode, and I thought that I would talk about the act of celebrating your wins. I think that this is an appropriate topic given that we just closed out the fall semester and we're prepping for a new one and a new year on top of that. And this semester and the year in general has been challenging, to say the least, given the COVID-19 global pandemic and the racial unrest and calls for social justice. And so, for me, I'm wondering, how did you celebrate surviving this trying semester and year? The topic of celebrating wins is near and dear to my heart, and it's a topic that I find important and is included as a question that I ask every guest on the podcast because I'm committed to seeing how others have celebrated and helping you to get ideas about celebrating. When I first decided to pursue my doctorate degree, I was extremely blessed in that I had friends who recently completed their doctorate degrees, and so I could go to them and ask about their experience. And in talking to them and others, I realized that this was going to be a long road. So I knew that I had to put something in place to keep me motivated and positive along the way. Everyone has so many different advice to give you about the doctorate process. Some of the common pieces of advice that I heard was making sure that you incorporate your topic into your coursework so that you have most of the readings done when it comes down to the time to write your literature review for your final dissertation. Another is that your dissertation isn't your life's work. So don't get hung up on this being the work that you will be known for, which you heard a little bit about in episode 2 with Dr. Ayanna Martin. And if you haven't, go ahead and check that out. I'll put that in the show notes. But today, my advice is to celebrate your wins. And for me, it doesn't matter how big or small the accomplishment. I think it's important to do so. As a Black woman, and for women of color in general, the world and society doesn't really celebrate us. We constantly receive messages that make us feel insignificant, invisible, and othered. But we know that we're important within our communities. We know that in general that we are the moral compass of society. We're always organizing and leading movements for change for the marginalized. Yet, when it comes time for others to fight for us, we're not getting the same energy. Indigenous women are disappearing and being murdered at alarming numbers, yet the mainstream media isn't covering it, and local authorities aren't doing anything to address it. Breonna Taylor's murderers are still roaming the streets. And there are countless other stories surrounding women of color not getting the attention that it deserves. Celebrating women have traditionally centered around heteronormative activities such as getting engaged, getting married, or having a baby. What does that say about how we're viewed? For me, I think that it says that we can only be celebrated in relation to someone else, and that typically is in relation to men. Additionally, we have been conditioned to downplay our successes. Most of us are pursuing advanced degrees to better ourselves as well as help our families and the community at large. We helped our sisters, our brothers, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, play cousins, and sometimes no one is there to relieve or help us, which often leaves us exhausted and isolated. Additionally, we know that higher education institutions were originally intended for rich white men, and that original intent still has implications today. In a 2017 article by Mignon Moore, she outlines literature that describes the experiences of women of color in academia, sharing that they're scrutinized and made to feel inferior. They lack mentorship since potential faculty, who are mostly male and white, mentor based on the need to reproduce themselves. And that the intersectionality of our race, ethnicity, and gender play a role in how we're viewed and treated. A quote from her article that stood out to me was from herself, where she says, as a young Black woman who believed in lift as we climb and each one teach one, I saw many of these activities as part of a social responsibility I owed to the many marginalized groups that claimed me in their membership. What I failed to realize was that I lacked a concrete plan for how to advance in the academy while also performing this type of service work. While I was busy mentoring others, I was not receiving the type of mentorship that was important to my success. All of this to say that we are in these spaces that are generally not nurturing to us, and we deserve to be celebrated. And I think that we should celebrate ourselves and not wait for others to do it. And for clarity, I'm not promoting or supporting a resiliency model. I'm actually engaging in pushing back on institutional practices that are oppressive to people who are not white men. And so, like I said, celebration is important. And simply put, celebrating keeps us motivated on the long doctorate journey. It helps you to stay focused and positive about the major tasks that you're pursuing. And let's not get it twisted. You are embarking on a journey that few ever do. And additionally, few ever finish. After a while of pursuing your doctorate, you start to feel like what you're doing isn't that big of a deal. You start to resent the process because maybe it's not going along the timeline that you're wanting it to go. It starts to feel lonely because everyone's on different paths, and you may see people who started after you accelerating at a faster pace than you, or vice versa. Or you might feel like no one can relate to what you're doing. You might also feel like you're just plain over it because you're watching everyone live and doing the fun, carefree things that you wish you could. But, you have to write and you have to read, and all of that starts to take a toll. So today I have 3 pieces of advice to help you to celebrate your wins. The first thing is acknowledge your progress. I engaged in a daily exercise of acknowledging my successes. I had a planner where I wrote my reading and writing goals for each day. And at the end of the day, I spent time reflecting on what I was able to accomplish that day. That practice helped me to stay motivated throughout my journey. So that was my daily celebration because one of the things that I absolutely love in the whole wide world is checking something off of my to-do list. But you can have celebrations attached to anything. It could be pieces of a project, a full project, or a semester's worth of work. So that is up to you. So that is tip number one, acknowledging your progress. And that is kind of a celebration in itself. The second piece of advice that I have is asking yourself what's going to keep you motivated. You have to find out what you enjoy. What will be a highlight for you if you had it attached to an accomplishment? Is it going to be a bottle of your favorite wine? Um, Maybe it's a favorite dessert. Maybe it's a relaxing massage or a beach day or a nice dinner at a favorite restaurant. You might even want to buy some makeup or get a new pair of shoes. Or maybe you're going to read a book just for fun. Imagine that, reading something not attached to your research. So, whatever it is, I think that it's necessary to have something to look forward to. I know for me, my favorite thing was travel. I love travel. As I shared in the introductory uh, podcast episode, I do travel blogging in addition to all of the other things that I do. And for me, that was one of the things that helped me during my process. It was great to have a trip to look forward to at the end of a semester. I would work hard and know that there was something awesome waiting for me on the other side of that semester. Sometimes it was a staycation in Miami. Another time it was a California road trip. Or maybe I'm beach bumming it in Mexico. And so those are just some ideas. And for me, like I said, those trips kept me going and pushing through. The third thing that I would say is to hold yourself accountable. And so for me, I think the biggest thing is to write what you want to accomplish down. Post it somewhere that you can see every day. Tell someone that you trust so that you can be held accountable for the thing that you had set out to do. As you see your note, and or are reminded by your accountability partner, you'll continue to keep your goal top of mind, which will help you to continue to push forward. And so, just to recap, celebrating your wins is super important. It helps keep you motivated and provides positive reinforcement and attracts success. Celebrating your wins helps to boost your confidence and it just keeps you motivated. And so I want you to spend some time thinking about what you really enjoy and what would keep you motivated along the way. Write down your goals and review them periodically and establish an accountability partner that you can share your goals with and will keep you honest. So, I'd love to hear how you celebrate your wins. And if you haven't developed a practice of celebrating your wins, now is the perfect time to think about incorporating this practice for 2021. Most of us are the first in our family to ever embark on a doctorate journey. And so I think it's important to make sure that we pave the road with pixie dust to show that we were here because you matter. Your research matters. Your hopes and dreams matter, and your celebration is in honor of all of that. As women, sometimes it's easy to celebrate the successes of others instead of our own. There is research out there that shows that small wins are vital to the bigger wins that we seek out to accomplish. In the case of pursuing your doctorate, a dissertation can only be written one sentence at a time. And over time, those sentences develop into paragraphs and pages and chapters, and then your final dissertation. And I think it's important for us to find ways to celebrate even writing one paragraph because that's going to propel you to completing another paragraph and another paragraph until you get to your final goal. Well, I think that's it for now. I hope you all have a happy and safe holiday season, and I'll see you on the next episode. Today's episode is sponsored by 87 Treasures, a lifestyle brand with products including t-shirts, sweaters, tote bags, and small canvas pouches, each displaying various designs to help celebrate everyday life and milestones. I'm a huge fan of 87 Treasures because it's owned by my biological sister. But besides that, her products are the highest quality and the packaging is the cutest. My favorite is the Determined AF sweater, which I wore every day I visited a cold coffee shop and library to get my writing done. Head over to the 87treasures.com website and use special code WOMM to get 15% off your first order. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Writing on My Mind podcast. If you're loving the content, make sure to subscribe and rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other women of color doctoral students find the podcast. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Dr. Emmanuela. And if you're looking for a group of real women of color doctoral students to help you accomplish your goals, join the Writing on My Mind community by visiting writingonmymindpodcast.com. See you on the next episode.